Welcome to This Week in Fantasy Baseball. I'm Mike Cardano with my sidekick, Scott Engel, the king, Scott Engel. How are you, Scotty?
I'm your sidekick?
You're my sidekick. Somebody's got to be my sidekick. There's nobody to my right.
I don't get it. You have Dr. Roto around. He could be your sidekick.
He's not here. He's not here. Let's get right to it. Joe Mauer, 7-day concussion list. Ron Gardenhire starts to talk a little bit about him switching positions. So where does he stand in the world of fantasy baseball if he has to move? And I gather I don't think he hits enough to be a first baseman. He's got to go third to the outfield, I would surmise. Or do you have a different opinion?
Well, you know, the biggest thing about this is eligibility. Where is he going to be eligible next year?
Well, he's still
going to be eligible at catcher. So this is something that he's still going to be very, very valuable at that position. So
that's a good point.
That's the biggest thing with Mauer. You really don't have to worry about this if,
it'll be 2 years from now. You got to worry
2 years from now, we got to worry about it. I think what you have to worry about is with this year, though. Some of these guys coming back, from a concussion. It can be very dicey. Like the NFL has a concussion procedure, but with baseball, these guys can take some real time to come back. We've seen it with guys like Jason Bay, etc.
Yeah, ruined his career. Done.
Yeah, I don't know if that's going to happen with Mauer necessarily. You hope it doesn't happen, but with baseball, concussions more dicey than they are with football.
Right. All right, sticking with catchers, Wilin Rosario. Is Wilin Rosario the best catcher in fantasy baseball? He's on pace 282, 24 home runs, 86 RBIs, 70 runs scored. Statistically, at the moment, he's slightly better than Molina just by the numbers. But if you're drafting and the draft is now, is he your number one catcher?
He would definitely be within my top 3 or 4. Rosario doesn't have the track record yet, but I got
track record. He hit like 27 home runs last year.
Well, he doesn't quite have the track record of Molina just yet. He's still a young guy, but you know what though? I believe in him a lot. I talked to people around the Rockies last year.
The baby bull, right?
Yeah. Now, I spoke to the people at the Rockies this year, though. I'm no longer allowed to call him the baby bull.
Why?
I can only call him the bull because he's no longer a baby.
Oh, okay.
But, they love him on that team. They think that he can be a consistent 30-homer guy year to year. My sources at the Rockies, when I spoke to them earlier this year, told me that they feel that he can be a middle-of-the-lineup guy for years to come. So, if you want to draft him as your top fantasy catcher next year, I really don't have a problem with it, and I really wouldn't trade him down the stretch.
Yeah, no, I think he's hitting better as the season goes on here. Most catchers wear down. He's not wearing down at all.
And, I think you saw that with him mentally last year. People I talked to over at the Rockies say, he showed even more plate discipline as the season wore on last year, and I think you're seeing the same thing this year.
Okay. Roy Halladay is coming back. He made his first rehab assignment. He's going to make another one this weekend, I think Sunday. Would you be inclined to use him down the stretch if you needed pitching? If you're in a stretch run, you're looking to get in the money, you need a fifth starter, would you be inclined to throw him in there?
It's going to be very, very risky because he was very, very disappointing before he went out this year. And, hopefully the time off, brings back some of the old Roy Halladay, but you just don't know. Have we seen the best of Roy Halladay? Is he done? I would have to put him on the bench for like 2 starts before I had to have any confidence in using him because, this guy can blow up my ERA.
Yeah, he's only going to have maybe 5 to go with.
You know what? I'll bench him for 2 and I'll take the 3 if I can get him. But, we're not looking at a big sample size to use him.
All right, what about Derek Jeter? He'll be back soon. You're going to bench him for a little bit? If you bench him for a little bit, he might be back out of the lineup if you don't play him right away.
Well, you know what? Jeter keeps getting hurt. His body's breaking down at age 38. If he's in there, you know what he can do. He's still very thin at shortstop, very thin in the middle infield. You plug him in, but the danger is in a weekly league, if you don't have daily moves, you don't know when this guy is going to go down.
Put your moves in on Sunday, he gets hurt on Monday.
He gets hurt on Monday or Tuesday. But, it really depends on the structure of your team. Middle infield depth, is not easy to come by.
Right. Okay, let's move on to the left coast. Yasiel Puig has played about 45% of the season now. You kind of get the feel for who he is and what he's all about. Well, what's your baseline for him next year if you're drafting him? What do you expect from Yasiel Puig for a full year?
I expect a lot of power. This guy was a quick study in the majors. I'll be very interested to see how he plays down the stretch in the playoffs. because I'll be wondering about the sophomore slump and, coming right out of the gate and playing in April. I'm not saying he can't do it, but I think, based on how he plays, he might get a little bit overdrafted next year. I'm the type of conservative drafter where I'd still like to see it for a little longer. I like to go with guys that I know that they have proven sample sizes. If a guy's got a really good 3-year average, I think people are going to jump on Puig for the upside. I like a little bit more of a proven player.
Okay. Paul Goldschmidt in Arizona. Is he the real deal? Is he automatically jump to the top? Is he one of the first handful of people picked next year right away?
Definitely.
Don't need to see it anymore. You've seen
I'm
enough
not
from
surprised by anything that happened with Goldschmidt.
I'm
this
surprised
year.
with the steals. You thought he was going to run that much?
Well,
He's got like 16 bases.
First
17
baseman,
bases.
you don't get a lot of steals from first baseman. This guy is an elite first-round pick next year because you look at some of the other guys in the first round, like McCutchen, guys like that. Outfield is deep. Not that first base isn't deep, but to get a first baseman that can steal bases like that, that's a rarity, and that's going to put him ahead over a lot of other guys next year.
Okay, all right. How about Giancarlo Stanton? Had kind of a lost year, right, with all the injuries and no lineup protection. He had no shot to begin with. The way I looked at it, he was doomed from the beginning.
I think it was more the injuries than anything else, though, that really set him back. He's
going to play about 2/3 of the year, roughly, and he's on pace for.
There's still talk about him being
50
traded
yards.
during the offseason. A story that you originally broke on
He's not going to be there.
MotoXpress.com.
He's not going to be there. And even if he's there for part of next year, maybe, but he's not going to be there for.
I still heard talk
unless that owner sells the team, he'll never sign with that owner. After
I still heard talk as early as this week about that Mets trade where they would trade Wheeler for Stanton because the Mets have so much pitching depth in their system.
They're going to have to trade a pitcher, and it's not going to be hard.
It might be Wheeler. It might be Wheeler.
Yeah.
Now that the Marlins,
Marlins have a lot of outfielders coming up.
RotoExperts.com's Lenny Melnick was talking to me this morning and saying now that he's making a good point. You know how much Lenny knows his baseball. He was making a good point that now that the Marlins have seen what Wheeler can do, they might be much more motivated to do this type of trade.
Yeah, they have a plethora of outfielders as well.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So to sum up here, we're going to talk about some National League pitchers, some young pitchers, all under 25 or younger. We're going to start out with Jose Fernandez, and I'm going to name you a pitcher, and you're going to tell me if you want to take him before or after Hernandez in next year's draft. Okay?
Before Felix Hernandez?
Jose Fernandez.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Got your Fernandez.
No, National League. National League. All right?
Yeah.
All National League, 25 or younger.
Fernandez, we're talking
Jose
about.
Fernandez. Marlins.
Not
Okay,
Hernandez.
we stayed with the Marlins.
Not Keith Hernandez. No.
All right, you ready? Tony Cingrani, before or after Jose Fernandez?
Oh, definitely after. I mean, I like Cingrani. He's got upside, but, Fernandez just so dominant this year. It's almost a shame he's going to be on an innings limit.
Okay. Zach Wheeler, before or after?
I like Wheeler. I like the upside. With each start, and I've been getting a chance to watch him up close. He progresses, but I really think that Fernandez can be one of the dominant pitchers in the National League. You asked me, do I want Harvey or
That's
Fernandez?
That's why I'm bringing him up. I didn't get to Harvey.
No, but I'm saying I'd rather have Harvey than Wheeler, so I'm definitely going to want Fernandez over Wheeler.
Okay, well then you mentioned him, so Matt Harvey or Jose Fernandez. That is a very, very tough one, but I'm probably going to have to go, as long as Jose Fernandez stays in Miami. The wins are very tough to chase, but I think Harvey, probably going to give you better peripherals across the board slightly and have a better chance at victories. The Mets can't get it. He throws a shutout and he's got to leave the game with 0-0.
No, but I'm talking about next year. A lot of money. The Mets are going to be revamped.
If they get Giancarlo Stanton,
a lot of payroll is going to come off the books. They're going to improve the bullpen. Whereas I can't see the Miami Marlins improving themselves.
Okay. Well, they might get Wheeler.
And they probably might trade him away.
Yeah. Okay, Madison Bumgarner or Jose Fernandez. Who you taking first?
Bumgarner is very, very proven. As much as I love Fernandez's upside, I go with a proven guy. I would actually take Bumgarner.
Surprised. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Bumgarner is great across the board.
Shelby Miller or Jose Fernandez?
That's a tough one. I like Shelby Miller's upside, but we've seen some bumpiness from him this year. But Shelby Miller's a very smart kid. I got a chance to talk to him this year. He works a lot with Adam Wainwright. He's very, very introspective. Sometimes, like I always say, when a veteran takes a young guy under the wing, that can really help the guy. We saw it this year with Starling Marte and Andrew McCutcheon. That's very, very close for me, but I'm going to have to put Shelby Miller right behind Jose Fernandez.
Okay. Steven Strasburg or Jose Fernandez?
If Strasburg pitches up to his potential, he's better than everybody we've talked about on this list, even Matt Harvey. Strasburg just has such the highest ceiling of anybody on this list. I'd have to go Strasburg.
All right, so far we got Strasburg and Harvey.
And
also the
Fernandez.
only ones. Okay.
And then Fernandez.
All right. Julio Teheran or Jose Fernandez?
Definitely Jose Fernandez.
Okay.
I do like Teheran. I don't feel he's quite in that stratosphere.
Okay. Mike Minor, Jose Fernandez.
No, not in that stratosphere. Definitely
Okay.
Jose Fernandez.
Patrick Corbin.
Definitely Jose Fernandez. Corbin is like really,
You're
really.
dissing a lot of people here.
I'm not dissing them. I just like the other guys better. Corbin's is not the dominant type of strikeout guy that Jose Fernandez is.
No, okay. All right. Clayton Kershaw or Jose Fernandez?
Clayton Kershaw. You guy's the best pitcher on the planet right now. I put him at the top of this list.
All right, so you got Kershaw, Strasburg, Harvey, and then Fernandez, and then the rest of the list.
Yes.
There you have it. The king.